experiencing this. I'm alien experiencing this. And how many aliens experiencing this are being heard, are being listened to? And they have a lot more detailed information, more accurate information than the human experiencing this, because the human has filters, emotional screens, religious upbringing, and brainwashing that distorts the perception of what's being presented to them by the ET aliens. And then they demonize and vilify us because they don't understand our nature. They don't understand the true nature of the universe. And they don't understand the true nature of being an identity. And this is why they vilify us, and then it causes hysteria and paranoia on the general population. And the general population are going to attack us. They're going to ostracize us. They're going to block us from gainful employment because we're a threat to, because basically the bottom line, we're a threat to the grip hold that the evil global elite has over the human population. Because if the humans start experiencing other types of beings and their true natures and everything, they're going to see us for what we truly really are, which is highly evolved, benevolent type beings. And once they see that and they start to understand us, and in so doing, they start to understand themselves, because the contrast creates understanding and insight. And they don't want that, because that'll liberate the mind from being controlled by the negative ET scourge and the evil elite. And so they're always fighting us, shooting at us up there with the secret space fleet, and they're always attacking us. They're blocking us from getting any kind of gainful employment down here on the planet's surface. And the demonization is pathetic. And the three men that you referred to, I don't really want to say their names. They're vicious.
Okay. Janet, you understand that we can universally say the benevolent may or may not be above those in this galaxy. So maybe we need to establish some perimeters, dimensions, overlays, realms. Janet, do you have any input from your many years of interviews of how to do this?
I'm just formulating how to do this. I think how to do this is how we're doing it. We're just starting with step one. And step one is getting down to stories and documenting, this phenomenon of extraterrestrial intelligence walking among as human beings. Many people are born into the human form, but we really identify with our originations from other, planets and universes and dimensions and those type of things. This is a phenomenon I encounter a lot. Now, your specific people that you're identifying with, Susan, you seem to be like another group that has started to come to the Earth. Up until this point, there's been waves. So I guess the first wave was probably in the 50s. I guess that was the Venusians and Valiant Thor, and the ships were coming down at Big Rock and California, and people were gathering. I heard that they had 20,000 people at those gatherings out in California, and then the ships would come down, and people of those times some of them would go and walk out and go right into the ship. So we have different generations with the Betty and Barney Hill phenomenon in the early 60s and so on and so forth. Whitley Strieber, wrote his book about Communion. I think that was in 1993. Or was that earlier? No, it was 1980-something, 86, 87. Yeah, I was in my second marriage at the time. So anyway, just begin. We don't have all the answers, but we don't need all the answers. We just do step one, and step one is this show with Susan. So, Susan, continue. What else would you like to tell our listeners about your early years, your beginnings, your memories, how you are dealing with this, how you're coping with this? Let's and then in about another 5-10 minutes, stop and ask us to interject again. Back to you, Susan.
Okay, and in my earlier years, but actually before I had that recall dream about flying into the black hole, I had I was around 5 years old, and at that time, my two brothers in the front bedroom, they had because we were all little kids then, they had those plastic monster kits where you make plastic monsters, a mold and everything, and you play with those, and they'd have little toy airplanes and stuff, the usual stuff the kids play with in the front as little kids. And I was by myself because no one had anything to do with me because the kids in the neighborhood were either much older or much younger. And I had an eye that turned in, and I had to wear an eye patch because I was born with amblyopia. Nobody wanted to be seen with the freak, even though I didn't think of myself as a freak. I was always told that I was very beautiful because I have long copper red hair, and I have brown eyes and an orangish type skin. I don't have the usual ruddy redhead complexion per se, real milky white skin with freckles all over. I had more of an orangish reddish type tan to my skin. Well, anyway, I would play by myself. But around 5 years old, I had this dream. I don't know if it's a dream or a scene. I was in my room in front of my dresser, and these beings showed up, and I thought that they were kids that wanted to play with me because they were about my height, like 4 foot or 4.5 feet or something, and they started actually shooting lasers at me, and then all of a sudden I started like I wanted to beat them up, and the energy would surge from my hands and go after them and shoot them, and it would burn them, and they'd get mad, and then all of a sudden one of my people showed up behind me, which was like 6 foot or like 5'5" or 5'8", and they shot a laser at him and vaporized one of them, and the other 3 got scared, and they went poof right through the wall and disappeared. And I had this happen like 2 or 3 different times, and I was startled. I wasn't scared or terrified or anything. I was startled, and I thought, what the hell? What are they attacking me for? What did I do? And then the other ones would say, oh, because they're your enemy, and then they said you'll know better as you get older. We're warriors or something like that. We're here to fight them. And then a few other dreams I had, it was like later on, like I was 8, 9, or 10 years old, I was visited by Yissaron, Uberon, and Oberon, and Zyderon, and they were showing me the true nature of where I'm from, which was Aquaruin and Cygnus, and they showed me our true features, and they showed me what it would look like. Our Aquaruin glands and the bumpy little bumps on the side of our face, like in front of the ear, like along the ear, like on the side of the face, and they showed us what they were used for, ductless glands for secreting different pheromones and stuff. And they showed me their fingers. They showed me what we really look like, and I did feel a strong affinity toward them, like that's who we are, or that's what I am. And then it continued around 12, 13, and 14 years old. I started doing a lot of out-of-body experiences, and I thought it was out-of-body, but I would go to the south of France, and I would visit this place. It was like an encampment, like it looked like Mount Saint Ségur, but it wasn't there. It was in La Javie and Digne-les-Bains in France. I found out those names later on by doing some research, but I found out there was a group there that looked humanoid, but they were from another planet. And I didn't know what their name was. I just knew that I was going there, and there was a guy there that I remember from my past life, and his name was Icke. And he had a green T-shirt on, dark blue jeans, short, wavy black hair, brown eyes, white, milky, orangish skin. And he says, "What are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here. Get out of here. How did you find me? Where did you know where I was?" I said, "I don't know how I found you, but here I am." And then and he didn't like me. I couldn't figure that one out. If he was one of us, why didn't he like me? So then this went on, and then finally, when I was 15 years old, I was asleep in my bed, and the front bedroom, they left the TV on, and I got mad, so I wanted to turn off the TV, and there was the documentary. It was called Overlords of the UFO, and they started describing this group called the UMO in the south of France, and they started explaining they come from Wolf 424 in the constellation of Virgo, and that they are the ones in the south of France. So and they said Antonio Ribera was the ufologist that discovered them. So then I started writing letters overseas a lot to Antonio Ribera, and I found out about Jean-Pierre Petit that used to do the astrophysics research in the Institute of Astrophysics in France. And then there was 2 other people I wrote to at Digne-les-Bains and La Javie. in the south of France, and it's true. The Yuma were there. Well, then they had since left. So then I forgot about that for a while, and I kept having ongoing experiences with my people, which are the Aquarins. And then I got introduced, and then I started being trained about central planetary energy masters, and the Yuma. I mean, the Nyandans were still working with me at that time, and they taught me about like synthesizing the central planetary energy from long distances, like light years away, by focusing on them, and you can tell by the arousal factor and everything that you're locked in and all that. And then I started getting other experiences where they would train me on the ships. And I started getting validation. I would start writing to the Center of UFO Studies, ran by JKLessin, and some of the dreams I'd have or scenes where I'd be flying over like Michigan or places like that. I would write down the dates and times, and it would correspond with certain dates and times of other sightings in those areas. And then not much information was given out back then, but then in my 20s, I started getting scenes where we were doing recon missions and stuff. And the central U.S., where you go underground, you'd see these underground facilities and colonies, alien colonies, human colonies, underground. And I started seeing other types of beings that I'm working with, palish, bluish beings like that look similar to the Greys, but their heads are much, much smaller, like almost the size of a normal human head. They're not exaggerated like the Biodroid Greys. And I knew that they existed, but I didn't say much about it in the 80s because nobody was going to believe me then. And then in the 90s, it started to trickle out some of the information, and then the New Age movement started. And all the different scout missions that we were doing in the 70s and the 80s, where we were awakening people to their true identity and reconnecting them to their true races, started to pay off, because then the New Age movement started in earnest, I think, around in the 90s. And I guess this is the byproduct of our work, because we awoken those people and reconnected them to their true races and stuff, and they started doing their work. And then the humor in the back of my mind, I never paid much attention anymore. But in 1994, I was working as a security guard at a high school, and I was still taking electronics at Miami-Dade. And I had finished the electronics degree, AA degree in electronics with the 2.65 GPA. Anyway, I was working as a security guard, and I was walking. It was my time off. I was walking on 106th Street, and I went to 97th Avenue. And on the way back, something told me to stop at 88th Court, so I did. And I stood there. I don't know why. And it was like September of '94, and I waited, and there it was. It was a black rectangular ship. And on the one lengthwise side, it had like a sawtooth pattern, drawn like a cream-colored sawtooth pattern on the one lengthwise side of the ship. And it flew, and it was only like 25 to 30 feet above me. It was no higher than the power lines. I kept looking at it, and I was squinting my eyes, trying to figure out what it was. Was there any ripples in it? Was it a kite? Was it some kind of a blimp? What was it? And I was trying to figure it out. And it was perfectly still over me. There was no ripples in it, nothing. And it was windy. It was perfectly still, solid black, right? So then I thought, what about, because at that time I was obsessed about the UMO, and I said, I formed a triangle with my two thumbs and my first two fingers over my nose, the bridge of my nose, and I kept trying to say, are you UMO? And as soon as I did that, the thing shot up to like 50 feet. And I thought, oh, my God, I was like shocked. I was like startled, like, whoa. I didn't know I had that much ability to focus and concentrate like that, because I used to do that all the time with Lyra and Cygnus and Taurus. I used to communicate with my fingers telepathically and try to get information back, feedback and everything. I found out that they're not human, they're Orquequian. And that's another story in of itself. But anyway, the ship banked to the lengthwise, east and west,